needs to coming into this live feed right now. Welcome to Master Your Money with Eric Anderson. For those who are tuning in right now, we're just going to give you a few minutes for everybody to come on into the live right now. I see folks joining right now. I see you. I see you. Welcome, welcome. Good evening. Good evening. So, yeah. All right. We see you. We see you. Definitely those coming in. If you are ready, I see some folks joining us. And if you have any comments in, please drop them in the chat. If those of you who are on Facebook, Instagram, those other handles, please let us know that you can hear us, that you're there. And if you have any questions, please let us know as we go. All right, we got one more minute till we start. I see you. I see you joining. Thank you for joining us. Got about 30 more seconds. Wait for a few more folks to join us. If you do, those of you joining us, if you have any questions, anything at all, please drop them in the chat. We'll be able to get to them. Please let us know. We're here with Master Your Money with Eric Anderson. All right, we're ready to go. Is everybody coming up? Awesome. I see you, Joseph. Seems a bit delayed. Okay. Says seems a really bit delayed. Okay. I know the live stream is coming through, so it may have a somewhat of a delay, but as long as you can hear us, that would be great. We'll go ahead and get started. Welcome to Master Your Money with Eric Anderson, where real conversations meet real solutions for building financial freedom. I'm your host. Oh, yeah, Garrett, Rachel, I see you. I'm your host, Isaac Rowe, and today we're diving into one of the most common questions that people ask. I know me and Eric have talked about this numerous times. Should I rent? Should I buy? What should I do? Right? And Eric is here to break down all of that, you guys. So he's just not talking theory. He's actually dealing with live people every day. And we have an awesome story to tell you too today that actually happened right before we jumped on the live today. And he's just helping people every day making these financial moves. So yeah, let's go. So whether you're talking about whether you're figuring out your next step, planning for ownership, we just want to keep you at peace of mind and get you in the right place and having that right mindset at the end of the day. So Eric, how you doing, sir?
I'm good. Good as always. Good as always.
Good,
Ready?
good, good. Let us know about renting and buying. What should we do when you're dealing with some of the clients that come into your office and talk about whether or not they should rent or they should buy? What should they prepare for, or how should one be prepared in that mindset when it comes to that? Because I know for some of us, we want to live, we want to have a nice life, we want to have that American dream. We want to have a house. And this is how the world and society has told us in America that this is what we need to do in order to have financial freedom and financial, that generational wealth, so to speak, so we can pass down the home and leave these things down to our children and generations to come. And so just give us a little insight on that and what your thoughts are.
So, very first thing from what you said, whenever we talk about things in finance, everything is not cookie cutter. And what I mean by that is there are certain people that it might be in your best interest to not own a home at this time, as opposed to a person who believes that they need to stop paying rent, stop giving away money, start building equity into their home, start building net worth, leaving legacies, generational wealth, all those buzzwords that people use when they talk about your finances. But if you are not prepared to buy a home and you buy a home and you become what we call house poor, basically, where you can't afford to live into that house, it can really and truly become a disaster for you. So, a lot of times when I meet with my clients and we talk about the next step of moving towards a home, it's not all about fixing your credit, having the right tax returns, having a down payment. One of the biggest things I tell clients a lot is um, if you were having a problem saving money and you are renting, be it a home or an apartment, you're probably going to have a very, very hard time living in your home. Even if you say, but I can find a mortgage that's lower than my rent. Because when you are renting something, the saying goes, your rent is your rent, meaning no matter whatever happens in that place, more than likely it's the responsibility of the owner or the landlord to take care of that. I like to say all the time when I was living in an apartment before I moved into my home, I could wake up in the morning, the AC would be broken, the oven would be broken, or something like that. I'd go to work, I'd call to the leasing department. By the time I got home, it'd be fixed. If I own a home, it doesn't work like that, right? If I live in a home, I gotta pay for the plumber to come out. I gotta pay for someone to come fix the AC. I gotta pay for those type of things. And if I'm not budgeted or have the reserves or the money set aside to be able to take care of those type of things, it can really become a disaster for me if I'm owning a home as opposed to renting it. And a lot of times we do not think about that. All we think about is the fact that I'm going to be able to buy this home. I'm going to start building equity, it's going to appreciate. I'm going to be able to leave it to my kids. Even back in the day, not so much now because of the change in the Schedule A. I won't get all into that. But I'll just say back in the day, it was really advantageous for people to, from a tax standpoint, to own a home because of the mortgage interest and the property taxes, stuff like that on your taxes. Because of the changes in the Schedule A, for some people, it's not as advantageous from a tax standpoint to own a home as it was back then. But that was a big deal that people used to justify owning a home as opposed to renting. But a lot of times, like you said, we both own homes. You know how that goes. You know, we were talking the other day about how my water heater went out, and that was 10 grand. When we had the freeze, there was a busted pipe under my home, and the insurance wouldn't cover it because it did not go through my house. So I had to pay cash for that. That was another 10 grand. I've had to change the AC. I've had to have the fences fixed. I've had to have all these things done for my home. And if I was just renting, then the landlord would have to pay for that, correct? So that'd be something that I wouldn't have to worry about if I was leasing. Because again, like the saying says, your rent is your rent. But when you're a homeowner, you cannot be in a position where your budget only basically affords you just to be able to pay your mortgage every month. And we also know anybody will tell you pretty much your mortgage goes up almost every year, correct? And why is that? You're on mute, Isaac. Mute. Okay.
It goes up every year. Property
Because of
taxes,
insurance, like that.
insurances,
So are you prepared in your budget to be able to take care of that as well? As opposed to somebody who's renting, and if the rent goes up, what do? You just choose to go rent somewhere else, right? Just go find another
Right.
place to rent if you believe you can't pay that rent. You just can't jump up and say, I can't afford this home anymore. So now I'm just gonna move. As you see, we've had conversations about people around here who are trying to sell their homes and can't. And what happens in that situation if you move, but you're still trying to sell your house? Now I have two mortgages that I'm trying to pay, or I'm trying to rent it out to try to mitigate that a little bit. And then there's places out here who are still trying to rent. So those are just things that you really need to think about before you just up and jump and say, I'm tired of paying rent. I just have to have a house. I have to live into a house. Everybody says I need to own my home and things like that. Again, as I say all the time, nothing is absolute. And what I mean by that is, I'm not saying not to own a home. That is not what I'm saying. Do not say I said that it's wrong to own a home. You need to rent. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is it might not be in your best interest at this moment, especially, we'll just keep it 100. There
Yeah.
are a lot of people out here who do things on their taxes and do things to qualify themselves to get a home, and they're really not prepared to get a home. So you're making your situation worse for yourself because you're doing things to be able to move into that home when you are really not financially able to be able to move into that home. So you think it's almost like it's almost like going to a car dealership and you know how much car you can afford, but they tell you you can afford this and you drive off the lot, right? And you think you won because you got the car you wanted
Yeah.
until the car gets repossessed. because you weren't prepared to own that car. The same thing. You think that just because I qualified for this home and whatnot, that that is the home that I can move into and stay into that home. A lot of people lose their homes because not because they got a new job somewhere and they moved or something like that. A lot of people actually get priced out of their homes. It's just a reality. Property taxes go up, um, insurance goes up, or things happen in the house that you can't afford to fix. Correct?
Yeah.
You know, would you really want to live in a house that has no hot water or live in a house that has no AC and things like that because you can't afford to fix those things?
Hey, Eric, there's some folks out there that they got their dream home. Like they got their dream home, and this is something that
And it
they
can become a
save
nightmare.
for.
It can
Huh?
become a nightmare, and it can become a nightmare.
Well, I'm just saying that's like we don't, we all say YOLO, right? Hey, we trying to live our best life out here, Eric. Like we
Understood.
trying to live our best life. Why can't we have a home that we work hard for, that we know that when we come home, we feel proud to know that we're working for it. And at the end of the day, yeah, I probably can't afford it, and I'm probably eating beans and rice or whatever the case may be, right? But I'm loving my home, and it's just like somebody wanted that car that they really want, like people who love, they got their Benz or whatever, they get what they want. And it's like, man, you got your family in there, you worked hard and put your kids in there and all that good stuff, and your spouse is there, and it's like everybody, you put furniture where it needs to be, and all that good stuff. It's like that American dream that we've always pictured what we want for our home, growing up and getting that job and getting that house, starting a family, all these different things. And it's like, so I gotta delay this. Is that what you're saying? I gotta delay my dream because I really, can't afford it. Is that the reality of that? Is that true?
Is it worth the stress?
You
Is it
know,
worth the stress if I'm in that house and I'm worried about the house being foreclosed on? Am I driving that car, but I'm worried about having to hide that car because I'm worried, that I can't make these payments? Or let's say again, we were laughing the other day about people not taking their cars in. Again, I know people, they're gonna laugh. Some of you might be riding around with the check engine light on your car because you can't get your car fixed, right? So let's just keep it real, right? Let's just keep it real, right? So I'm driving
as
my
long as
dream
I pass inspection, as long as that light don't come on while I'm inspection, I'm good.
but if that check,
If it can go, it can come on after the inspection, as long as I pass and
there's
it's
usually,
not on during the inspection, I'm good.
but there's usually a reason why there's a check engine light, right? That car's gonna be because I'm not upkeeping the car, right? So that might be a car again, that might be your dream car, whatever, but that's just not the car you can afford right now. And the same thing with that home, that's just not the home you can afford right now. And again, it's a hard truth. But again, like we were talking last night in the group, then fine, then go get a part-time job, go figure out. Again, I'll say it again like yesterday, your money is in a pie. Period.
Mhm.
The pie is 100%. If I have to put more into the home than I'm budgeted for, then something else has to give. So if I got
Right.
to live in that house, fine, then there's something that I have to give up if I don't make more money. Correct? And usually,
Yeah.
what are the things that you lose? You lose your future, meaning, especially the way it is today. I know a lot of people are going to say, how on earth can I save? But with the way you need to look towards the future as well, you don't want to just retire with just your home. A lot of these jobs don't have pensions, they don't have retirement, stuff like that. You need to be having a 401k, you need to have brokerage accounts, IRAs, different things like that. So if I'm just, I hate to use the word existing, but that's the way you're putting it. You're like, I'm just existing in this house, but this house has me, what's the word I'm looking for? This house has me trapped in the fact that I can't do anything but pay for this house.
Mm.
Is that the way to live? So everything, all of my money is going into this house. So I'm not able to save for retirement. I'm not able to have a savings account. I'm not able to have an emergency fund. I'm not able to do anything but just exist in this house. And when you say the American dream and stuff like that, that shouldn't be your dream. Your dream shouldn't just be, I'm just living in this house, but I can't save money. I can't do any of these other things besides the house. And I understand, with the way the economy is today and things like that, that it's hard to have the discussion on saving money and things like that. I'm not blind to that. But a lot of times, again, like I said last night, if you already have in the mindset that I have to stay, and I'm going to say the 50, 30, 20, if I stay in my mind, my fixed expenses have to stay at 50% of my income, then I should not have that problem because I have the variable stuff that I can move around and I have the
Right.
saving stuff that I can move around. You can't move around fixed expenses unless you get rid of fixed expenses. The
And
only way you
preach
can get rid
that.
of fixed
Yeah.
expenses is if I sell my house, if I sell my car, if you want to count utilities and stuff like that, if I stop watching cable, things like that, if I cut certain things off, that's the only way you can get rid of fixed expenses. You can't bring your car note down unless you refinance it, right? But at the end of the day, pretty much you can't bring that down. So you shouldn't go in with the attitude of, I'm going to go buy this car just because you only live once, or that's my dream car, or I'm going to go buy this house because that's my dream house. But if you really and truly look at your budget before you go and buy the house, if you don't do that, you're setting yourself up for failure. It just is what it is. If we're going to be real, we're going to be real. It makes no sense for somebody to go in and buy a house and the house is 70 and the mortgage is 75% of your household income. You're not going to win. You're not going to win that. There's no way. There's no way. Something's going to happen where you are not going to be able to pay something. And so I know it's hard. Everybody wants to drive their dream car, everybody wants to live in their dream home and stuff like that. But if we're talking about being financially free, if we're talking about being financially responsible, we need to think about when we get ready to go buy things and do certain things, such as buy such big purchases, such as buying a house, buying a car, doing things like that. We have to look at our budget. That's our biggest problem, to be honest with you, is that a lot of people, even on this call, if they're being honest, they do not follow a budget. They
Mm.
do not have a clue on really how much am I spending every month on fixed expenses? How much how much am I really spending out of my overall income is my house note, is my car note, is my car insurance and things like that. What am I really spending every month? Because if you kept yourself inside of the pie and kept yourself inside of those certain things, again, I'm not saying it's absolute that you're never going to have any financial problems, but you are definitely setting yourself up for failure if my pie is 75, 80% fixed expenses.
So
And
break down the pie again, Eric. Break down the pie again one more time. Break down the pie.
a lot of people use different methods, but for me, the method that I like to use that I hear a lot of people say is 50, 30, 20. And what that is 50% of your income, of your overall household income goes to fixed expenses, 30% goes to variable expenses, and 20% goes to saving and investing. So a lot of times the problem is we cut the 20% out. Most people, if they have any type of retirement savings or anything like that, it's in their 401k at work because you're told I need to at least do whatever the match is at my job because that's free money. So most people, all they're doing is the 3% or the 6% or whatever at their job, but they're not doing an IRA outside of their job. They're not putting money into a brokerage account. They don't have an emergency fund. They don't have a savings account. They don't have those type of things. They don't have a money market. They don't have a high yield savings account. They don't have those type of things. Their only retirement is their only savings account. I'm gonna call it that because again, not to call anybody out, but Isaac, you have sat in a conversation with me where somebody said they were taking loans out on their 401k. You should not be doing that.
That was crazy. That was
You should
crazy.
not be doing that.
Using the 401k as a savings account.
It's a savings account. You should not be doing that. And again, I'm not saying that to offend anybody or hurt anybody's feelings on the thing if that's something that you're doing. I'm not trying to hurt your feelings or whatever, but you should really and truly not be using your 401k as your savings account.
Mm.
because you are robbing yourself of your retirement. Even though you're saying, "Oh, it's my money and I'm paying interest," but the interest is going right back into the 401k. But that is stopping that money from growing, correct? Because that money's not in your account.
Right.
So you are having to replenish that money back into the account with interest. True, it's going back into your 401k, but you are robbing your future. You're robbing your retirement if you are using your 401k as a savings account. And that's not even talking about if you're not putting enough into it, because again, you really need to be investing 10 to 15 at least into some type of retirement account to be able to retire comfortably, whatever comfortably looks like for you. But if you're just doing 3 or 6%, it's probably not going to look good for you in retirement. A lot of people who have state jobs, city jobs, stuff like that, things that still have pensions, you're going to get checks when you get to retirement. But even some of those people will tell you that's not enough to retire on. Those checks are not enough, especially to live this YOLO, live these lifestyles that everybody said they want to live in retirement. You're not going to be able to live off of that. You're not going to be able to live that lifestyle with that check.
Eric,
And, okay, I was going one more thing. And if you're not paying attention to what's going on with Social Security right now, you think Social Security is going to be it, then good luck with that.
Yeah. Eric, we have some few comments that I want to share with you. See if you had any comments on it. I'm going to share on the chat. Says, I think Joseph says, in our first year of home ownership, I have been hit with over 100K in repair work, 44K roof, 35K foundation, which turned into new flooring. That was 16K and 19K plumbing bill. Wow.
Now, if he was renting, right? If he was renting, again, I'm not knocking owning, but what I'm saying is this is what you need to think about if I want to own my home as opposed to renting. Now, I will do the other side when people say it's better to rent. When I hear people talk about that, because like I said before, the difference between the renting part is, again, your rent is your rent. So if I'm paying rent to somebody, no matter what happens, like Joseph said, so say Joseph was renting that place out as opposed to living in it. So then he'd have to eat that, right? As the landlord, and then try to raise the rent and all that good stuff to try to recoup his money, right? But then if the person moves out, all you're doing is paying your rent. So a lot of people say, I would rather just pay rent and then I'm going to have all this money because of the money that I save as opposed to owning the home. That could be true if you are really and truly investing that money. All right. That's the same thing like somebody who, we won't talk about that today, but I'll just say quickly, it's the same thing as somebody who says, I have a whole bunch of term insurance as opposed to somebody who says I have whole life or IULs or whatever. And the person who has the whole life or the IUL says, you're throwing money away in the term because you're never gonna own that. You can outlive the term. Let me put it like that. You can outlive the term, right? But the person who owns the term, what are they supposed to say? I'm investing that huge difference between what I'm paying in term compared to what I'm paying in whole life and IUL. So when that term runs out, I should be what is called self-insured, right? Meaning I've invested all that money to where I don't need life insurance. I don't need that much life insurance because I've invested all this money. And that's the same mindset a person who's renting should have as opposed to the person who owns. Because even after everything we've said, as long as you are paying your mortgage every month and doing what you're doing, be it the 15, 20, 30-year term or whatever, you are eventually going to have a bunch of equity in your home, right? I'm building equity. The house is appreciating, right? So I'm going to have cash in my home if I own it, correct? It might cost me a lot from building it up to do that, but at least I can do a reverse mortgage. I can sell the home and move into move somewhere else. I can do all these different types of things. At least I'll have that cash as opposed to the person who's renting. So not to let the people who are renting off the hook, but if you're going to rent as opposed to own, you definitely better be, I don't want to say better, but you definitely need to be investing that extra money you're saving by renting as opposed to somebody who owns their home.
Wow. wow, we got to be careful out here. You definitely have to be careful. Yeah. Yeah. That's a lot of money. Joseph had that. That's a lot of money right here. Roderick
And
said it's about knowing the total cost of home ownership and having a budget that can support that. If you don't know how to effectively budget for owning a home, then work on that budget first, right?
and the worst
So work
part
on-
is, and the worst part is, in a situation like that, you really never know. You never know. Like you said, something can happen. Your fence can fall down. Your roof could mess up. The thing with the plumbing at my house, these are things that they just happen. They just happen. Your AC can go out. Things just happen. You don't want to say you're not prepared for it because you should be saving money and stuff, but anything can happen if you own your home. Do you understand what I'm saying? So it's
Right.
like, how are you prepared? How do you say I need to have this amount of money saved or whatever? You just need to have money saved. At the end of the day, you can't just be living paycheck to paycheck
Okay.
and
So if
save
you
money.
got money saved and you got money in reserves and you got, at least your 3 to 6 months and you got something that you can kind of pull from, then it's okay. You know that you have something for emergencies and just in case water heater breaks or anything like that, you have to get something repaired.
Well, I'm sure
Um,
Joseph wouldn't say it's okay that he had that money to do it.
I mean, nobody wants to spend
Break-
100K on repairs. Like
it's-
nobody wants to do that. I don't know if anyone has like 100. I don't know if we should be having 100K just laying around if it's not in the high yield savings account or you know what I'm saying or something like that.
Definitely,
But yeah,
definitely. But you definitely, on the other side, you definitely don't want to have to pull it out of your 401k, which is sadly what happens with a lot of people.
that's
That
exactly what happened.
they
Yeah,
have to take this money out of their 401k. And so again, it is what it is, but it's something that is not very something that you really should not want to do. So
yeah, yeah. Joseph said he said was not prepared to do that. I was planning to put that on the house to pay the loan down. And so it's like, I know we're preparing for a lot of stuff, and it's like you try to prepare for the best possible situation, or worst case scenario in a sense. And I know you had a story from earlier before we got on
yeah,
about something that just happened earlier. If you want to share that, because
yeah.
that was like, what just happened? So I would love to hear that. If everybody can share with everybody tuning in right now.
I think it's fine to talk about it because I'm not going to name this person.
Yeah.
But so I've been working with the client for about 2 or 3 years now. We've been bringing that person's debt down. He's been paying his credit cards off, getting everything down. He's self-employed, so we got him into an S corp, got him a salary. He's got a solo 401k that he's putting money into. He has a Roth IRA, so he's building up his retirement. We're paying all the credit cards off and doing all these things. And again, we had a small emergency fund. I know Dave Ramsey says $1,000, whatever. We had a little bit more than that, but the AC went on in the house. And because he had a small emergency fund, small savings account, he had to go and he had to take all the work he had done getting the credit cards off to then go to get the AC fixed. He had to take a credit card that he had spent all this time getting that credit card down. And again, it was kind of deflating to him because he had felt he had done all this work to get that down and stuff like that. But again, it just goes back to showing you, things can happen. It's life out here. It's not picture perfect and stuff like that. Like where I think we're going to talk a little bit here in a second about having rental property. Again,
Yeah.
it's not as perfect as the videos that you see and stuff like that. Things like this happen. So if you own a home, imagine renting out a home, and these type of things happen. But yeah, it was a very interesting story because of the plain and simple fact that you're doing all the right things you're supposed to be doing. You're trying to get your debt down, you're trying to save money, we're building up retirement, we're doing all these things, and then something like that can trip you up. Something as simple like that, something that's beyond your control that can trip you up. So, but imagine if this person So in this situation, this person could have paused their IRA. This person could have paused their 401k, right? Because again, they're not living check to check, right?
Mhm.
If I'm not living check to check, certain things that I'm doing, I can pause that, right? I even
Mhm.
saw where Dave Ramsey is telling people that they need to pause their 401k to try to pay more debt off. That's neither here or there as far as what you're thinking on that is, as far as interest rates and stuff like that. That's not today's discussion. But for me, the most important part, which is the whole point of this discussion, is because if I'm not living check to check, if I have things going into savings accounts, emergency funds, brokerage accounts and stuff like that, I can pause those things. Like I've even said to you, I don't have an actual savings account. I have a brokerage account. I have a high yield savings account, I have a brokerage account, and I have a money market account. So if something happens, instead of me putting money into that every month, I could just pause that, right?
Right.
And keep it moving. But if I'm living check to check and I have a real and true emergency, something's going to fall off, right? Because I don't have the money to take care of that emergency because all of my money is going to the 50 or some cases I can adjust to 30, but if the majority of my money is going to what's supposed to only be 50%, it's hard for me to take care of emergencies, right?
Mhm.
But if 20, 25, 30% of my income is going into savings accounts, emergency funds, brokerage accounts, things like that, if I have some type of emergency, couldn't I just pause that?
Yeah.
And again, I know in today's economy, it's hard to say that because most people be like, what are you talking about? Are you crazy? Who's able to put 20, 25% of their income into savings accounts and things like that? But again, what if it's 10%? What if it's 15%? You can pause that, right? If I have some type of emergency and I have money sitting in a brokerage account or in a high yield savings account or something like that, I can take that money out, pause what I'm doing, and take care of that emergency, as opposed to somebody who's just living check to check, who's house poor, who has a car they can't afford, who has a whole bunch of credit card debt, who has all these different type of things that their money is already being allocated to the moment they get paid, right? The moment they get paid, they're paying bills, right? They're not paying themselves first. They're not doing a savings account. They're not doing any of those type of things. So if an emergency happens, that person has a problem, right? Then what do they have to do? They have to go get a loan. They have to go get credit cards. They have to go get line of credit. They have to go do all of these things that are going to charge you all this interest to borrow money, right? I know we say this that other use other people money nonsense, but I got to pay interest back on that, right? As opposed to me having something that's growing interest over here and I just pause it and stop using it. I might not be able to put it in there for it to keep growing interest, right? But at least I'm not paying anybody any interest, right? I don't owe anybody any money. I'm taking my own money to take care of these things, right? And that's the
That's
part that
right.
we miss.
Yep.
That's the part that we miss.
Man, man, this is a lot. This is a lot. Eric, God made me feel guilty like I should never bought my home
Yeah,
because I
man.
probably you probably feel guilty like you
I'm-
killing my
and
dream, you
that's,
killing my vibe right now because I probably shouldn't have got my home. I should have probably just kept on renting. Because when you get in a home and if they don't have a water softener, you know how much a water softener costs. When you
correct.
get like
Oh,
a
I
new
do.
home, right? And it's like
I
that's a
said that.
couple
It was
of
$10,000. I thought I said that. Yeah.
yeah
Our well, the water softener didn't go out. The water heater went out
water
because
heater, right?
I wasn't putting salt in the softener. So I got brown water. And so when they came, they were like, "Hey, your water heater's messed up because you weren't continually putting salt in there." So yeah, that was 10 grand.
Woo, woo.
Yeah. Yep.
Mm.
Correct.
It makes you feel like you probably don't want a home and you don't want to buy properties so you can rent out to make money. So, Eric, how do we even get to the place where we talk about generational wealth? I want to make money. You see, they always talk about, well, that's the best place to go is like you have a paid off home, all that good jazz. But, even if you're in retirement, you still got to have repairs. Do you have repair money for in retirement for anything that goes wrong with your home? And I don't know if we were all preparing. I didn't prepare for that in my mind. I just prepared to stop working, not prepared for anything that goes on with my paid off home.
Correct.
So
I'm saying you need to have more money than that. But I will go back to what you're saying when you're saying I can't afford a home. Yeah, you can. There's a difference between I look at my budget and I can afford a $250,000 home as opposed to a $750,000 home. That's the problem. Because there are people who come in here and apply for loans, apply to get loans, and they say, you can afford this home. The house we're living in now, we were approved for more than the house that we bought, right?
yeah,
I can go to a car dealership and they say they can say you can drive anything off the lot you want, but that doesn't mean I'm gonna drive a car just because I can afford it, right?
yeah,
That's the problem. So when somebody says, "Oh, I can never afford a home," no, you can't afford the home that your eyeballs are making you believe you can own, as opposed to what your wallet is telling you you can
yeah,
own. And again, it's a hard pill. It's a
yeah,
hard pill to swallow. It's a hard, especially when you're watching this nonsense of people driving around these cars telling you you can drive this car and write it off and you can do these vacations and you can do all this stuff. It's a hard pill to swallow when you're trying to keep up with the Joneses, as they say, because you really and truly believe that they are living these lifestyles, but they're leasing these cars. They're not, they're renting these homes, they're doing all these things, but you are really and truly running around thinking that they're living a lifestyle that you are fighting to live and they're worse off than you are. And that's absolutely crazy because again, you don't sit down and take a look. Again, it goes back to, are you taking a look at your budget and figuring out this is what I really and truly can afford? If I go to the car dealership, is this the car that I really and truly can afford? If I'm renting a property, if I'm renting an apartment or I'm renting a home, if you have to ask yourself, if I move into a home, I can't look at the mortgage and say, okay, the mortgage is $250 less than the rent, so I'm going to be able to save 250 a month. It does not work like that. I think I already said that. It
hmm
doesn't work like that. You really need to think about, man, if I own this home, there are expenses that I'm going to have to come off of now owning the home as opposed to renting it from somebody else. And we don't look at it like that. All we see is I'm throwing all this money away for rent. I can
yeah.
find a mortgage that's cheaper than the rent that I'm paying. So I should be able to own this home.
That's exactly. Be honest with you, Eric. That's exactly what I got into my home. I was like, I'm
And I'll tell
paying
you,
more
yeah, and I'll
for
tell you
rent
worse.
for a
I'll tell
smaller
you,
square footage
yep.
than if I were to get a home.
And I'll tell you what's even worse. And I've actually seen these videos where people try to blame it on the lender and the real estate agent, stuff like that.
Mhm.
You know, a lot of times when you buy a house, like towards the end, because that's what happened to us. We closed in August of the year that we bought the home, right? Then when the next year came, our mortgage shot up. Why?
Because the property taxes and everything wasn't assessed at that time.
Perfect. But a lot of people don't, they act like they don't know that. These are things that you should know before you go.
They don't tell you that, Eric.
You know,
They don't
but
tell you
again,
that though.
but again, there should be videos like this that are telling you that. There should be people who are saying, "Hey, do you know that you need to make sure when they're telling you what the mortgage is right now that the property taxes are in here. If they're not, your mortgage is going to shoot up next year because they're going to now start putting the property taxes into your mortgage." And so there are plenty of people out here, Isaac, who the very first year they're already in trouble. The very first year they own their home,
Yeah.
the moment the year turns, all of a sudden their mortgage goes up and now they're in trouble because their budget could not, if somebody had told them when they first bought the house, this is what your mortgage is going to be, even though it's going to go up every year anyway. But if they told you this is what your mortgage is going to be, they would probably say, "Hey, I can't afford that."
Yeah.
And you're in the
Yeah.
house, but you're in the house. And they give the option, right? They're like, you can do this huge lump sum,
Yeah.
keep your mortgage down, or if you don't pay this huge lump sum by certain such and such a day, what? Your mortgage goes up.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is just real, right? This is just the
This is
truth.
real because it happened to me. So that's why I said it was double
I'm
what
not
it was
making this up.
double per month. Either pay the full amount for the taxes
Yep.
owed for that period of time, or you can pay it over time. But it's like a double and a half payment
Almost double
per
payment.
month that you had to pay until you paid it off, right?
And so here's the crazy part. So now your mortgage is way more than what you were paying in rent, right?
Right. Way more. Way
And that's
more.
the mortgage. That's not the other stuff, the having to get things fixed, having to pay HOA fees, having to like when I was in an apartment, we didn't have to pay for trash and all that stuff, right? You got to pay for all
Mhm.
of that. I didn't have to pay to get my yard cut. I didn't have to do any of that stuff, right? That's just minuscule stuff that you have to pay for if you're living in a home now. We're
Yep.
not even talking about repairs and stuff like that. That's just minuscule stuff. That's just stuff you just have to pay because you own your home as opposed to renting.
Mhm. I got a question right here in the chat, Eric. It said, "What are your thoughts on rent to own?" By Maryland. At one time, this was against the law. Has that changed?
No, I know that law. I know it has not changed because I have some clients who are doing owner finance and rent to own stuff like that. So I know there are people who are doing it. Um, my thing on that is again, using it. What I've seen using rent to own things like that, you're renting it, but you're probably paying for the stuff that fixing stuff like that because you pretty much own it. You're just, there's owner financing it for you till you can get up the money or whatever to get your credit and all that stuff up together to be able to own it. So if it's a house you want to stay in and stuff like that, so yeah, I could see doing it, but just understand usually you're doing that because you are trying to get your stuff together to be able to qualify for in order to get the loan from the home.
Would it be better to rent to own if we wanted to? If we wanted to, like we were been renting, but if we say, "Hey, we want to rent to own to get prepared," would that be a better situation to be in than just renting an apartment? And it's like, "Hey, we want a house." They say it's a rent to own. We're gonna rent it until we can get to a place maybe next year to try to own the home. Would that be a
That
better
depends.
solution, or?
That could be a better solution between you and the owner. Because again, like if the owner is putting that towards,
Okay.
you paying off the house and stuff like that, it's up to that situation. Some people would think of that like, okay, well, I'm part owner of this house now because I'm ready to own it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. We had another question: is taxes and insurance eats up 50 to 60% of profit, even if your home is paid off, I believe, or is this a comment? Yeah.
Yeah. That's talking about the other part
Okay.
about the owner rental property.
Owner of property.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had another question. It was what was the difference between money market versus high yield savings account? If you want to
So
address it.
they're pretty much the same thing. It all depends on the rate. I know, like the money market that I have, depending on how much money you have in it, uh, the interest rate goes up the more money that you have into it. And there's only a certain amount of withdrawals you can make in the money market account, and there's only a certain amount of money you can take out of the money market account. I don't think I think the high yield savings account, I believe the interest is the interest no matter how much money you have into it. And I'm not really sure on the limits on how much you can take out of it. And again, that depends on whatever bank you use. I know a lot of my clients, like myself, we all have American Express high yield savings accounts because of the rate and stuff like that. A lot of people like the American Express high yield savings account. And my money market is in my personal account here in town.
That's what I need. If I can get that American Express, that sounds like something I need right there. You
Hmm.
know, is it like a black card? Do I get a black card, Eric? No, I was playing. I'm gonna spray paint that sucker right there. I'm gonna spray paint it. No, I was playing.
No, it's
I'm
just
bad. I'm bad. I
regular,
know. I know.
just a regular savings account. Most people use that. Like the bank I have, my bank does not have high yield savings account, so that's
Okay.
why I have the Express one. Yeah,
Okay. And when you do that, do you need to um I
have like a
guess
certain
move
amount
all
in
your
there.
money over? It's like a bank account, or is it just something
No,
different?
there's
Okay.
something different. That's like again, when people talk about having a whole bunch of different bank accounts, yeah. So that's just a different bank account
Okay.
that I have. I have it at a different bank, and because it has high yield savings account at that bank account, and because I have two business bank accounts. I have the one here, and then I have an American Express business checking and savings account, and then I have business cards there, and then I have a business card here at the bank here. I have a personal savings, money market and stuff here. And then, like I said, I have the high yield savings account at American Express. I don't have a personal checking account at American Express. I just have the high yield savings account. I don't need a personal checking account there.
This is good, Eric, because I'm gonna flip this one because it's like I got a text message that says, "What if I own a home that I want to rent? What are the pros and cons of that?" So on the other side, if I'm renting to other people, and maybe it looks like if I own my home and I want to rent it out, that means I have to go get something else, right? So that means either I'm gonna, get another home. I'm gonna rent this one out, get another home. What are the pros and cons if you have anything on that? Because now it's on the other end of that, being kind of like the landlord and dealing with those expenses, and then also buying a new home. And so what would be the idea or mindset going into
Oh,
that of what you need to be prepared for?
okay. So a lot of younger people, especially, do not believe in 401ks and stuff like that. Everybody is so ingrained into believing that the quickest way to build wealth is owning real estate,
Mhm.
correct? Because of the appreciation, the equity inside of it, all the tax write-offs, all that good stuff of renting out a property. If everybody doesn't know, if I rent out a property, I can put it on what's called a Schedule E. I can write off the mortgage interest, the property tax, any expenses, repairs, property management, depreciation, all that stuff. I can write that off on my taxes. If I make over a certain amount of money, I can't write it off. It just carries forward unless I'm considered what's called a real estate professional. So a lot of people who are quote unquote wealthy or whatever, one of them says they're a real estate professional, and so they can write off all those losses. The problem is if I own a rental property, it kind of goes back a little bit like owning a home, except I'm renting it out. And what I mean by that is I'm counting on the rent I'm collecting for me renting it out to be enough to not only cover my mortgage, but cover anything that happens in that home, right? Or otherwise, I'm taking a loss. So if my mortgage is 2,500 a month and I'm charging 2,750, it's not as simple as saying I'm making 250 a month in passive income, right? Because again, if something happens in that property, that person can call me and I got to fix the plumbing. I got to fix the AC. I got to have repair work done if the fence falls down and things like that. So I have to have reserves in case that those type of things happen, right? That's number one. That's if somebody's renting and they're a good tenant. Imagine if somebody is staying there and they're not paying rent, or imagine if no one's staying there at all. So if I own a second property, a place that I don't live in, like you said, I have to have the reserves to be able to pay that mortgage in case someone isn't staying there or in case someone is staying there and not paying rent. That happens all the time. Don't believe it if somebody says we have 100% occupancy and all that stuff. If you have time, like I do, I have time where I can watch YouTube videos. Can I say sovereign citizens here? Where I watch these people do these, go to court, and
No,
where I see these people go to court and say they don't have to pay rent. It's
you
the
need to
truth,
stop
right?
watching those videos. Yeah,
It's
you
the
gotta stop watching those
truth,
videos.
right? So even if I win this case, all this time I'm fighting this case, I'm fighting to not lose my home, right? Because if I'm not paying the mortgage, I'm going to lose that home, right? I can't turn to the lender and say I can't pay the mortgage because my tenant isn't paying or because no one's staying here. So
Mhm.
that's the part that we miss as well when you see all these people say, don't do a 401k, don't do things like that. Go get a rental property, go get a rental property, go get a rental property. You're going to make all this money doing rental properties. Again, nothing is absolute. So I'm not saying there are not people out here who do not have rental property who are not making money. I'm not here to have that argument today. If you are somebody who's making money with rental property, great. But if you believe everybody is making money off rental property like you claim you are, you're crazy. There's no way. There are a whole bunch of people who come in here and they talk about it saying how they have to sell their property because they have horrible tenants, they don't have tenants, or like Joseph, they have a situation where they have to do all this work on that property and you're never going to recoup that back as far as collecting it in rent. You are not going to be able to raise the rent on somebody to be able to recoup that money. So if you do not have the reserves to be able to have the positive cash flow. Well, I'm sorry, that doesn't have anything to do with it. If you don't have the reserves to be able to take care of that property if something happens, then that might not be the best move for you. And a lot of times, a lot of people will take the equity out of their own home to go buy rental properties, correct? Because
Right.
they believe that I'm going to make all this money off of the HELOC or whatever I took out of my own property to go buy all these rental properties. But then what if all these things happen in these rental properties?
I mean, you're gonna, if you do a fix and flip, if I pull out $100,000 out of that, and I could make that flip and I sell it, right? And I could sell it, and I could pull out the 80, was it 75%, 80% or something like that out of the value after the appraised the 80, yeah,
And
after
I would say,
appraised
I,
value.
yeah, and I will say I have clients who do very well doing fix and flips, and I have plenty of clients opposite who lose everything. Again, it
It's
is.
not even funny. I'm sorry. I didn't want to say it like
It's
that.
really not. It's again, anything's a risk.
Yeah.
So again, anything's a risk. Opening up a business is a risk. Doing anything is a risk. But what we're trying to teach today is you should not go into something blindly because you see Grant Cardone or any of these people telling you how easy it is to do these things. You should not just run in and do these things because they're telling you how easy it is to do these things. There are people who are really and truly, as I see all the time, you end up worse off than where you started.
Mm.
And that's what ends up happening. And worse, people go out and get loans and do all these type of things to try to do these things. And then you end up owing all these loans back and all that. And then, we get the entertainment of everybody believing that if I file bankruptcy, everything just goes away and I never have to pay anybody else again. And I still have clean credit and my life just goes wonderfully. We won't even have that discussion today. But that's what people really and truly believe. They believe I can just go take these chances, take these opportunities, jump on these different type of opportunities. And if it falls apart, I can just file bankruptcy and I wake up in the morning and it's like nothing happened. That's what people really and truly believe in their minds and in their heads. And that's incredible to me that you would believe that nothing happens to you at all if you file bankruptcy. But that's what people really and truly believe. So again, at the end of the day, I'm not telling you not to have rental property. I'm not telling people to have rental property, but I'll put it like this. When people say to me, do I own rental property? I say no. I say I own REITs. And we all know what REITs are, right? Real estate mutual funds, basically, right? I say I have REITs. So I'm invested in hospitals, cafeterias, things like, hospitals, supermarkets, things like that, because they're in REITs, as opposed to me going and getting a rental property and worried about somebody calling me at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning because the AC's out, or if I have property managers and they're going over there and having to fight to try to get rent, or people tearing up my place and stuff like that. I don't have to worry about any of that, right? I'm just putting money into the brokerage account every month. And I have the ability, if something happens, like I said before, if something happens next month, because I put money into my brokerage account the first week of every month, right? If something happens where I say I can't put money into my brokerage account in November, how does that hurt? Who does that hurt? Nobody. But if I have a rental property and that person doesn't pay the rent, I have to come off of that mortgage. I have to pay for that mortgage, right?
Yeah.
Correct? There's a difference between me owning rental property and me owning a REIT. Right? I can stop a REIT anytime I feel like it. I have a family emergency. I have something happen in the house that I got to pay for or something like that. I can stop paying on the REIT for a couple of months, right? That money's still sitting there. The money I've already put in is sitting there, still growing, doing its thing. And I can just say, you know what? Because I'm not living check to check, the money that I'm putting into this, I can now move that money into taking care of this emergency, right? As opposed to the person who is counting on people to pay the rent in order for me to be able to pay the mortgage. And again, that's not the part that we think about when we say, I'm going to go buy a bunch of rental property, as opposed to getting a brokerage account or opening up an IRA or getting a 401k and things like that. These are things that you can stop and handle your emergency. If your emergency is that you don't have anybody living in that property, you can't stop that. You got to come off of that mortgage. you got to pay that mortgage. Or if you have that rental property and the AC breaks or a water line breaks and things like that, you can't stop what you're doing if you're living check to check and you don't have that money sitting in reserves or something like that. You have to actually come up with that money. And that's the part we don't think about when we say, well, I'm going to get a rental property because that's way more safer and it makes way more money than me having money in my 401k or in a brokerage account and things like that. We don't think about that part of it. All we say is this is what wealthy people do. Instead of thinking of what your own situation is, I would never buy a rental property if I did not have the reserves to be able to pay the mortgage every month in case somebody either wasn't staying there, or if something happened where they didn't pay the rent, or if something broke in the place where now I got to go get a loan or I got to take money out of my 401k or do something like that. I would never own rental property if that was my situation where I was completely counting on that person to pay the rent. It's great that they're paying rent, so I don't got to worry about the mortgage that month, but I would not completely say if they don't pay rent, I'm in trouble this month. That's just me personally. That's just me personally. So when people say, why do you not own rental property? That's why I don't own rental property.
I see. This is good, Eric. This is good, man. If you could recap, I know we're gonna close out the show for this evening of Mastering Money with Eric Anderson. Could you give us a nice little recap, and we can close out for this evening?
So again, like I said at the beginning, I know we like to joke around when we talk and we say that I'm the Grim Reaper and stuff like that. When people come into my office and stuff and they tell me what type of business they want to do and they want to do all these things, stuff like that, my job is not to automatically tell you no. So like today, we didn't have this conversation today for me to tell you not to own a home, even though you went there. My job is not to tell you not to own rental property and things like that. That's not what I'm here to do. My job is to give you both sides. It's almost like somebody telling you the great part about having an IUL, but they don't tell you the drawbacks to it, right? They don't tell you the cons to that. So when we have conversations, when we talk about things like that, I believe my job is to tell you the pros and the cons. So I hope that in today's discussion, I didn't completely dissuade you from owning a home, but just making you aware of the different type of things that can happen if you are not prepared to own a home. Do you understand what I'm saying? Same thing with a rental property. I'm not telling you not to own a rental property. I'm telling you the different things that can happen if you own a rental property, the different type of drawbacks, the things that can trip you up owning a rental property, as opposed to just believing, as you hear all these people say, you're going to get all this passive income if I have a rental property. You know, what fool wouldn't own rental property? I know you hear that all the time. Correct? So you should not go into it with that type of mindset that if I'm going to have rental property, I'm just going to make money hand over fist. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. And again, like me and you talk about all the time, just think about your own home. You own your own home. So imagine all the things you have to do in your own home. Why would you not have to do that if you own a rental property? And you're responsible for your own mortgage, right? You're counting on somebody else to give you rent, but all the other stuff you're responsible for. So I hope that was helpful today.
That was good. Thank you, Eric. Really appreciate it. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in this evening. Every Wednesday, we'll be here live. If you have any questions, any topics, or anything of that nature, please email us at info@thefinancialturtle.com. I'm so used to saying my organization. Anyway, info@thefinancialturtle.com. Please let us know how we did in this live. If you have any questions, any comments, any concerns, you can definitely follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. We'll be having a lot of videos that will be launching out here.
As well as YouTube. As well as YouTube.
Yeah, as well as YouTube. We'll be doing live on YouTube and Facebook and all those channels too as well. So please let us know. I'm gonna drop this email in the chat. And anyone who has anything, please let us know. We would like your feedback. We would love your feedback. Thank you, Eric, today. This has been great. I
enjoyed
learned
it.
a few more clarity things today. You think that you know some stuff, but then once you start diving into certain topics, you realize like certain conversations you probably shouldn't, had before you make these decisions.
Correct.
So we thank you, Eric, and I thank you everyone for tuning in. And Eric, you have any last words?
That's it. Make sure you
All
follow.
right.
All right.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you guys. Appreciate it. Have a good night.